The following stories are true. They involve exploding dogs and trained mosquitoes. Viewer discretion is advised. It is World War II, and the Nazis are running rampant across the Eastern Front. Tanks are still the problem. This time, it's the Russians who are trying to stop the Nazis in Hitler's panzer divisions. But everything they try gets blown away before it even comes close.
The German tanks were phenomenal. They were very capable, and they were wreaking havoc. And you've got this problem: how do you knock out a tank? And they didn't have all the munitions you may have now as anti-tank munitions. How do you take this weapon out of the battlefield?
The best way to bomb a tank is from underneath. And to do this, the Russians needed a guidance system with speed, agility, and intelligence. Meet Shadow. Shadow is going to help us demonstrate how the Russians trained their dogs. Their trainers use a technique called positive reinforcement, made famous by the experiments of Ivan Pavlov and his dogs in 1927. After completing a task, Shadow is given a reward, which makes him want to do it again. The Russians trained the dog to complete a series of tasks: run under an enemy tank, drop a bomb, run back.
It's called chaining. He has to look at the tank. He has to follow the command. He has to run. He has to run quickly. He has to dive under the tank. You would train these operations, sequentially or by themselves, and then chain them together where the reinforcer is given at the end.
It's the next bit that gets really dangerous.
Right. We need to pop this on him.
Yeah.
In what today would be seen as animal cruelty, the dog carries a 26-pound mine in a jacket strapped on its back. For this to work, the Russians had to train a dog like Shadow to pull the doggy chew and release the bomb.
It's called shaping. When he looks at the string, you give him a reinforcement. You keep doing that. And then he eventually will touch his mouth to the string. And then eventually he'll pull it.
It was an ambitious plan. Shadow would have to release the bomb at exactly the right place and exactly the right time.
How confident would you be that you could train a dog and be sure it was always going to pull it at the right place?
I wouldn't. No.
This is where the whole thing broke down for the Russians. When they actually applied the plan, the dogs would run under the tank, then run back to their trainers, usually with the ticking bomb still attached to the harness. So it was back to the drawing board with one simple fix.
So what we have now is a trigger mechanism. When he goes under, this comes down, it detonates.
In training, it works perfectly. The problem is that the Russians just didn't think or smell like dogs.
A good way to put it is the dog sees the world through his nose.
The Russians made the mistake of training the dogs on their own tanks. And as it turns out, Russian tanks have their own unique smell.
And the Russian tanks used diesel. When it came to deploying the bombs on the German tanks, they were gasoline. Of course, that's confusing.
From the dog's point of view, anything that smelled of gasoline clearly wasn't a tank. So the dog got confused. Having failed to find anything that smelled like a tank, the dog came back with his bomb and its automatic trigger. Even so, the dog bomb worked, sort of. At the Battle of Kursk in August 1943, dog bombs took out 12 German panzers, which left the Germans with only 2,488 in that battle alone. The Russians never recorded how many tanks they lost to friendly fur,